Steven Agnew, this is perhaps the first Assembly election where orange and green and the constitutional issue isn't foremost, perhaps, at the front of the campaign. Is that a chance for you to make a breakthrough?
Absolutely. Since politics has started to normalise in Northern Ireland, the Green vote has been increasing. Our votes increased in every election since 1998. That obviously culminated in us getting our first 3 councillors in 2005 and our first MLA in 2007, and we're hoping to build on that in these elections.
But of course, you've got a fight on your hands to retain that seat, and the momentum perhaps has gone out of the Greens on this island when we see what happened in the Republic.
Well, if you look at the Green movement globally, which we are part of a global movement, and that's why we dispute the claim that we're a small party. We're a huge party across the world. We're looking to triple our seats in Scotland, looking to get our first member of the Welsh Assembly in Wales, and we just got our first MP in England. So, you know, the Green movement is optimistic at the minute, it's buoyant, and I expect us to continue our upward trend here in Northern Ireland.
Steven Agnew, of course, you might suggest the Greens have been in opposition at some, but a fairly soft opposition.
Well, no, I don't believe that at all. I mean, we've been in there and we haven't been bemoaning the system. We've been in there working within the system that's there. Yes, we'd like to change it, but while it's there, we'll work within it, provide strong, effective opposition. We introduced the Green New Deal. Now we have Sammy Wilson, hardly a friend of the Green Party, talking about the Green New Deal in a recent budget. Now, he still fails to understand it. He's used it as a smokescreen for environmental cuts, but that's why we need to be in the next Assembly to make those points and to make sure that the Green New Deal is properly funded, to create jobs, to help tackle fuel poverty and to help tackle climate change.
Okay. And our first question is from Seamus Searson, who is a representative of teachers' unions.
Good afternoon. My question is, the schools and the school support services are facing tremendous cuts over the next 4 years. What is your party going to put forward to protect the front line, the teachers in the schools, class sizes, and at the same time raise standards?
Efficiency savings, can you protect frontline jobs in education, Steven Agnew, by doing that?
I don't believe so. I think we have to also look at how we can spend the money we have better and also how we can raise revenue. Now, the Green Party has proposals that will see an extra 1.5 billion spent on public services. First, we'd scrap current plans to build new roads. We'd think, in terms of our priorities right now, new road building schemes are not the priority.
Do they not create jobs?
Small amount maybe, but we're talking about policies that are good for the economy, good for people and good for the environment, and the road schemes don't tick those boxes. So that's 790 million that could be spent creating jobs through the Green New Deal and in education and health. We'd also mutualise Northern Ireland Water, which would save the public purse 200 million per year. So that's an extra 800 million over the next.
And would you prioritise education?
Education should always be a priority, absolutely. But, you know, we have to look at spending our budget across protecting all public services. Not saying these public services are more important than these ones. Let's not have our public sector unite, fighting amongst each other.
Okay.
We were out there in the rallies against the cuts, and we'll defend public services.
Paddy Meehan, Seamus, just your comments. Any solutions there, do you think, about the frontline jobs?
There's some suggestions towards a solution, but what we really need is leadership, real leadership about putting the children first and building a system around them. And unfortunately, we haven't had that in the last few years.
Let's have another question now. Jane Copeland, you have a question which pertains to older people.
Yes. A great boon recently has been the introduction of free bus and rail travel for older people. Excuse me. Do your parties have any further proposals which would help to alleviate our financial burdens and also make our lives more enjoyable?
Steven Agnew.
I think the Green Party has always supported public transport, and part of the reason for that is it's about its accessibility for everyone. Currently in Northern Ireland we spend less than 20% of our transport budget on public transport. We'd like to see that reversed like it is in other countries. We have a crumbling public transport system. We do need to improve it, because it's great that older people have free transport, but that's not of much benefit if the public transport isn't available for you in your area.
And I think, let me bring Jim back on that. What do you think?
Well, there's plenty of goodwill there. It'd be good to see it all implemented, but I don't know a great many specifics.
All right. Well, Dwayne Farrell from AGNI, you have a related question.
Yeah, the reality is that our current system of social care is broken. Older people cannot get access to the services they need to remain healthy, active, independent. Older people are telling us they're concerned about that, not just for themselves, but for their kids and their grandkids as they come through the system. If elected, what can you do and what will you commit yourself to do to address the social care system currently?
Well, of course, you'd be all for that, Steven Agnew.
Absolutely. We need to invest in NI, and we haven't been doing that. We've been running around the world with our hands out saying, please come to Northern Ireland, offering huge grants and low-wage labour. We need to invest in Northern Ireland through schemes like the Green New Deal that has the potential to create jobs. We've looked at the corporation tax issue. We oppose the cut for big multinational corporations because that's going to take money out of the public services
But does it not
that we
also
need to invest in.
You talk about invest in NI, that would also give money back to small businesses here who might choose to
invest
reinvest
that's why we'd like to look at the small profits rate proportion of the corporation tax rather than cut the whole thing, which is really a subsidy from the public purse to the likes of multinational corporations, to the likes of the banks. Rather than doing that, let's look at the small profits rate for our local businesses. Let's help support them. Let's invest in Northern Ireland, in our small products. We keep hearing about parties that want to protect the town centres and enhance the town centres, but the same parties have to, cheer and hooray every time there's a new out-of-town supermarket built that takes jobs out of our town centre, that gets more people in the cars, that locks us into more oil dependence, which people increasingly can't afford. Well, if we keep going down this road, we're going to be stuck with our addiction in petrol, and until we get off it, until we start insulating people's homes so they can put less oil in the tank and cost them less to heat their homes, we're going to be ever locked into this dependence on foreign energy.
Well, like I said, before I go back to the panel, Dwayne, I know we moved off the specific issue that you'd asked about, but it highlights perhaps some of the bigger choices that the politicians have to make. What do you think?
I appreciate that. I have to say I'm slightly discouraged that I don't think there was any coherent policy there around how we're going to address social care. It's not just about money, it's about, improving outcomes, keeping people healthy. So I'm slightly discouraged about this one.
Panellists would say that as well, but perhaps we'll get some more detail at another stage. Let me get a question now from Brett Cunningham. And Brett, you're a former Coast Guard.
Yes, Jim, thank you. Some aspects of public services have already been addressed, but I would like to look at a specific area. During any major maritime incident, all the emergency services of Northern Ireland will work closely together to ensure a successful search and rescue outcome. Now, with the cuts that are proposed, some of these facilities might not be there in the future. What I would like, if the candidates could assure me that these resources will be fully funded to meet their commitment in the future.
Henry Ryan.
Yep, no, I think there's an idea here that somehow we can have cuts and not have job losses and cuts to services. We absolutely will, so we do have to look at alternatives, how we can manage our budget better to ensure that we minimise any potential cuts. We've talked about how we're going to do that. I mentioned the scrapping the road building schemes, our opposition to the corporation tax cut, and our proposals for Northern Ireland Water. So we have to give realistic priorities. The Coast Guard in Bangor absolutely has to be kept. I've met with the Coast Guard, I've engaged in the consultation process. In fact, I've went round my constituency getting people out and making sure that they get their views in of why we need the Coast Guard in Northern Ireland.
And you've heard what they're saying. Wouldn't expect them to say anything less, that they would support you. But have you heard anything concrete about how it would be done?
No, there's a consultation document out at the moment and people are responding to that, and it's been done. Unity that I've seen here today actually is quite reassuring. We've got the unity of our MPs from Northern Ireland who are resisting this particular change, and it's good to see that that same unity is reflected here today.
Well, John, to our panel, and Alison Miller, you're with NIPSA, and of course you're against the cuts too. What do you want to ask the politicians?
Will you support the campaign by the trade unions to oppose the pension increases planned by the UK government and which would be applicable here in Northern Ireland?
Steven Agnew.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been at the recent trade union rallies. I'm engaging with the trade unions and making sure that their concerns are heard. In fact, in the Assembly, we asked the Finance Minister, when you're deciding your budget, are you listening to the trade unions? Because that's exactly, because as has been pointed out by others, trade unions are the ones representing the workers in our public sector. So we need to listen to their voice. Politicians don't have all the answers. We have to listen to those in the community, those in the public sector, and hear how they think public services should be delivered.
Keith, work, do you think?
Yes, well, pensions is something that we're extremely concerned about moving forward, because what will happen is that people will just have to rely on state benefits if pensions are cut. The thing is that under the current proposals, it's work longer, pay less, or pay more and get less in old age, and that doesn't seem to fit in. You know, people are living on pensions of less than £3,000 a year.
Okay, well, let's hear from our last panellist, Ken Sharp. You're a small business owner. What's your concern?
Well, we've heard various ways of talk about raising money, and Road Service are planning to raise money by introducing on-street car parking charges in a lot of towns around Northern Ireland, thus handing the out-of-town shopping centres a further advantage against small businesses based in towns where they've got their acres of free car parking. So really it's the panel's opinion on the parking charges specifically but the town centres of small towns more generally.
Keith, a quick word from Steven Agnew, but surely getting cars out of town centres is a good idea.
This isn't the way to do it, though. I mean, again, this is essentially giving an advantage to the outer sound supermarkets who have our big concrete car parks. What we need to do is plan our towns and cities better pedestrianisation, better public transport, and then people won't need to bring their cars.